Welcome to Blueza's blog. I have Joe Lewis on Skype at the moment, and I'm just so honoured to be touring Joe coming up in October, November. And welcome to my blog, Joe.
Well, it's well. Thank you for having me, Bruce. I appreciate it, and we're looking forward to the tour of Australia. It's been a while since I've been there. I think about 4 years, Byron Bay or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it, and the band is too.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I suppose I'll just kind of start at the beginning. So at an early age, you used to play in this club called the Matrix. At a really early age, and opening up for all sorts of legends like Jimi Hendrix and Miles Davis and different people like that. How was that? I mean, as a young kid, I think you were 16 or something. That must have been pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was several different clubs, but the Matrix was more of where the rock and blues sort of collided because several of rock musicians were instrumental in the Matrix being running the Matrix. A guy named Marty Ballin, who had a group called Jefferson Airplane at the time,
Oh, yeah.
and I think Rick Scully, the Grateful Dead's manager, I forgot. But at any rate, they used to bring a lot of old blues acts there and younger blues acts. They brought everybody. And then a lot of the rock bands would play there. But it would be a precursor to playing the Fillmore Auditorium, which wasn't that far away. But I mean, I was fortunate that that's my neighborhood. I mean, it was on Fillmore Street. I'm from the Fillmore district.
Yeah.
So I was at home, basically. So, because I had been playing for about 4 years professionally already.
Yeah.
I joined the union when I was about 14. So it was a good thing for me. It's just something that really, I was probably one of the most fortunate people in San Francisco area.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. Must be like, a kid in a candy shop.
Well, yeah. It would be nice. I'd love to say it was all, this mythical thing that was it was these sparks flew, and at times, most of the time, the music, now I look back, everything was flying around, but at the time, it was a lot of people having spending nights at crash pads, musicians not having enough money to get to the gig, to put my gas in the car. I mean, it was, at the time, it was it looks good now. Back then it was just, but when you're young, you really don't care. You just want to go and play and have a good time.
Yeah, right. So I just read this thing the other day, and I was just like, wow, that like Muddy Waters, when you do with him, he used to cook or something, cook meals for you or something.
Well, no, what happened was I had the opportunity to open up for Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
He had came to San Francisco, and me and a friend of mine, Rick Estrin, who's got a great group called Rick Estrin and the Nightcats. So me and Rick were young guys, and Rick had been going to Chicago every summer. But some kind of way we connected with Muddy, and he said, if we could get to Toronto, he was opening up at a club. He was playing at a club called the Colonial, which was a very famous blues club. It's gone now. Howlin' Wolf, everybody used to play there.
Wow.
And so some kind of way I got to Detroit, and Rick went to Chicago to perform with a gentleman called Johnny Little John, and I ended up putting together a group of guys, and we went to Chicago. So hanging with Muddy was cool because his guitar player was a friend of mine, a guy named Pee Wee Madison.
Oh, yeah.
And me and Pee Wee were very good friends. And we spent a lot of time together at that time, and so it was great for me.
Yeah. So what drew you into music? I suppose your parents must have been playing music around the house or something, and what got you there?
Well, my mother and father and my older brothers and my brother and sister. I had it was 5 of us young siblings, so I was the youngest, so I got all of my older brothers and sisters' record collection to listen to, and my mother and father's. And my father, coming from where he came from, he used to grow up and go out and juke joints place, listen to people like Howlin' Wolf and people like that. And my mother was where she lived in Arkansas. B.B. King was real big, so I got to hear that from basically the day I was born. You
Yeah.
know, because the records and things were new. You know, everything was new. So by the time my mother and father came out, they would have their house parties and things like that. You
Yeah.
know, and so I got all the music passed down to me.
Wow. Yeah. Excellent. My dad used to just like he listened to a bit of jazz, you know, and that kind of started me off when I was pretty young. And then from there, a friend said, "Oh, have you heard of Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee?" You know, I went, "Oh, no, not really," you know, and had to listen to that, and I was like, "Oh, wow." And then I realised that, yeah, you know, so much big names like the Rolling Stones and even the Beatles, you know, have influences through blues and that, you know, so it's
Oh yeah,
made a lot
yeah,
of
all those
sense.
cats, man. You listen to all those cats, all those guys play and listen to their older recordings, and you know you hear a lot of songs that were blues and rock and roll, but really a lot of blues and
Yeah,
rock and roll, all kind of stuff.
yeah. So what does blues mean to you? You know, like some I've probably asked this a few times to different people. You know, some people say, "Oh, it's you know, nothing but a good man feeling bad." You know, some people go, "Oh, it's always really sad," you know. And for me, I think it's kind of like it's there to make you feel good, you know, not sad as such. But I know what
Well,
would you how would you put it?
I think it means different things to different people. Um, if you go back to the guys that originated the blues, it meant for them a cathartic way where they could express themselves with not catching heat from the powers that be. It's also of survival music for the people that invented it because they didn't have a lot. They didn't have a film auditorium. They didn't have a Madison Square Garden.
Yeah,
They didn't have a crowd of 1,000 people. You know, they didn't have people saying he's the greatest guitar player. They didn't have a guitar. They just wanted to get out of the situation.
hmm.
So that was the catalyst for getting out of the situation. And then another generation come along and it saved another generation, but in a different way.
Yeah,
It saved all the English guys you mentioned because, you know, I don't know whether you've ever been to Liverpool, England. I've been there. You know,
no,
it's like East Harlem. It's a tough town. It's a
yeah,
tough town. You got to be tough. And I'm sure when all those rock stars was coming out of there, it was tough. So that music sort of spoke to them. You know, that was the catalyst for them
yeah,
because I forgot which one of the English rock musicians said it, but they said, you know, he said, I didn't want to be Elvis Presley. I wanted to be Scotty Moore. Another guy said, well, I didn't want to be Frank Sinatra. I wanted to be Little Richard and Chuck Berry.
yeah,
And you know, and I love it all. You know, I dig it all. But I think that when that music coming out of what it really being born the way it was born, it spoke to people who were going through the same problems. Didn't make any difference what color. Didn't make any difference what country.
yeah,
Didn't make, and that's the power of the blues. But now it's morphed into something else. You know, it's a little bit different now. It's a big business, a huge business. Maybe not for me and you,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but for some of those people you mentioned, you know, it's such a big business now that it's it's sort of a situation where it's a big tent. It's a
Mm,
big tent, incorporates a lot of people, a lot of styles, a lot of this and that. But all the everybody doesn't share in the rewards of it. And it's sort of like it's too bad, you know, but I mean life, you know, you can't play the hand you want, you play the hand you got.
yeah,
And you're very happy to be able to play your hand at all, you know, but when you say, well, what is the blues? I really believe in my heart that it's a social studies. It's a studies in how to survive through something that was ran out of town, put out of town,
yeah,
didn't let the sun come down on it, and that's the people that it spoke to. You know,
yeah,
the blues spoke to Muddy Waters, like it spoke to Muddy Waters, it spoke to John Lennon. Like it spoke to John Lennon, it spoke to Keith Richards. It
yeah,
spoke to Keith Richards, it spoke to Gary Clark. It spoke to Gary Clark, it spoke to Derek Trucks. I mean, when you think of the diversity of people and their backgrounds, and you think that this music could touch all these people. Hey, look at you. You're from Australia. I'm from San Francisco originally, although I'm upstate New York now.
Mm.
I mean, it just shows the power of that music and the openness which we all can sort of take solace, in that same old thing,
Yeah. Oh, beautifully put. That's that's great. That's gold.
All right. Mm-hmm.
So like you were good mates of Michael Bloomfield. And he obviously influenced you a lot too. I would take it. In kind of a bit more of a rock edge, I suppose. What were days like with him? I mean, it must have been. He sounded like a pretty creative kind of character.
Well, he was one. He to me, he's one of the several. I met several people who live and breathe music.
Mm.
I mean, there's music every day in the house. There's guitars, there's pianos, there's drums, everything. People coming over every day playing. People spending the night because they got a gig and this, that, and the other. Michael was a true musician, and he could have been a musicologist because in a way he really was. But he was responsible for a lot more. Responsible for turning a lot of people on to the blues, and that's one thing. And one thing I think the Butterfield Band doesn't get credit for, was one of the first really mixed integrated blues bands that I'd seen.
Yeah.
That became that big, and became something that, when I say I'd seen, I mean I saw other guitar players later, a little bit later, but I saw a lot of them trying to play blues, like guys where I come from. I heard "Good Morning Little Schoolgirl" by Jerry Garcia and Grateful Dead trying to play blues, and God bless them, their heart was in the right place, and they even recorded it, and it sounded good, but it didn't sound like Junior Wells and Buddy Guy like I had heard on the record, Hoodoo Man Blues. So, but when I got a chance to hear, the Butterfield Band, it was basically guys my age, just a little bit older, 4 or 5 years older, playing it like the guys in Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, most of the band was from Chicago, and they had mentors. They all had mentors. Muddy mentored Michael. Smokey Smothers, Little Smokey Smothers mentored Elvin Bishop. Otis Spann mentored Charlie Musselwhite. It's a different thing, but that's how close Junior Wells mentored Butterfield a bit. So I mean, it was literally like a record called Fathers and Sons. It really was like that.
Excellent. So what guitars? Like you've played a lot of different guitars over the years. What's your favourite guitar? You've probably been asked this one a few times.
Well, I'm a little different. I in the '80s and early '90s, I was sort of like a lot of friends of mine into the vintage guitar thing and what have you. But an old guy told me a long time ago, and I've always really sort of been like this. The guitar is nothing but a piece of string and some wood, and some electronics to go in it. It's an expensive piece of wood and strings, and it can be very expensive if it's vintage. But the only thing comes out of guitar is what's in your soul and your heart and your fingers. So I mean, you can give B.B. King any guitar and he sounds like B.B. King. He's played them all,
Yeah.
But for me, I'm known now for playing Les Paul, but which I like a thick tone to. But I also play a Strat for certain things. But I'm more into right now playing a Les Paul. But they're all for, I think, different colors and stuff. Like painting.
Yeah. They're like I've read this thing about like a Stratocaster is almost like a blank canvas. It's what you put into it kind of thing. A lot of. I mean, there's obviously the pickups and things like that, but there's that thing that the person gives it.
Right.
I'm doing these blogs because I love blues music, and I know you guys do too. So let's share it. Share it to all your friends and show them the power of blues music.